So after the birth of Moshe in the Torah portion, and after he's famously placed in a basket found by Batya, we then move on to the next stage of Moshe's life. This can be found in the book of Shemot, chapter 2, verse number 11. And let me pull up we'll share the screen so you can follow along here with the text. Okay, should be it. Let's show Rashi's commentary. It came to pass in those days, Moshe grew up. Vayigdal Moshe grew up. Vayetze alechav, and he went out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivlosam, and saw their burdens. Vayar ish mitzri make ish ivri me'echav, and he saw an Egyptian man striking a Jewish man of his brothers. And Moshe is upset about this. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Vayifen ko v'ko, he turned this way and that way. Vayar ki ein ish, and he saw there was no man. Vayach es hamitri vayitmenehu bacho, he struck the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Verse number 13. Vayetze bayom sheni, and he went out on the second day. V'hinei shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, Vayomer la Rasha, Lama sakeriecha, why are you going to strike your friend? Verse number 14, Vayomer, to which he responded, one of the men responded, Mi samcha leish, who made you a man, Sar v'shofet aleinu, a prince and a judge over us. Hala hargeni ata omer, do you plan to slay me? Kasher harakta semitzri, just as you killed the Egyptian yesterday. Vayira Moshe became frightened. Vayomer, and he said, Achen noda hadavar. Indeed, the matter of what took place yesterday is known. Verse 15, Vayishma Paro Sadavar, and in fact, Paro heard of this incident. Vayivakish la'argas Moshe, he wanted to kill Moshe. Vayivrach Moshe ran away, made Paro from Paro. Vayeshev be'eretz Midyan, he dwelled in the land of Midyan. Vayeshev ala be'er, and he sat down by a well. Okay, so here you have those verses, 5 verses. And then the story continues. He goes to Midian, and there he meets his wife Tzipporah. He meets Yisro, his future father-in-law. This is the little episode that led to Moshe running away from Egypt. Okay, so I think we have the simple meaning over here. As this class is, it's Pardes, trying to go through the different approaches to appreciating, understanding Torah. So you have the simple meaning. Moshe Rabbeinu sees someone hurting a Jew and he kills the Egyptian. There's a whole background story to that in the Medrash. The next day, Moshe tries to stop a fight, and they get in the way, and they say, "You're trying to kill us the way you killed the Egyptian yesterday." Moshe is afraid of that, and he has to run away. Simple. It seems to be pretty simple. However, as is the case with most of Torah, that which seems to be simple often contains many deeper messages. And here too, there are deeper messages to the discussion. Firstly, let's just look through Rashi. Just reading the Rashis provides such profound ideas over here. Second Rashi, Vayar b'sivlosam, he looked at their burdens. Says Rashi, he directed his eyes and his heart to be distressed over them. Moshe himself was not enslaved. Moshe himself was living in the palace. He was fine. But the first step to Jewish leadership is the ability to sense someone else's pain. This idea is most famously described, or the opposite of this idea is most famously described in the legendary words, or the infamous words of "let them eat cake," right? They complain to the queen or the leader that the people don't have bread. Oh, let them eat cake. A total disconnect from one's personal status and comfort to one's to the discomfort and the pain that others are going through. The first step is Vayar b'sivlosa. Despite living in the palace, he saw the pain of others. So I don't want to get into this, striking a Hebrew man, but when you have a chance later, you may want to read this Rashi on verse number 11, which explains the backdrop of the story of the Egyptian who's striking the Jew. It would seem that it wouldn't be unusual at the time to come across an Egyptian striking a Jew. But this was unique. This was an interesting situation. Okay, so we'll get to that later. Or you can get to that on your own if you like. Vayifan Kovako, and he looks in both directions. He saw there's no one standing there. Says the second explanation over here. Again, simply put, that means there was no one there who would catch Moshe in the act. However, Rashi gives an additional interpretation. She saw there was no man, says Rashi, no man destined to be descended from him who would become a convert. There was no righteousness descending from this Egyptian, and therefore, he looked here and there. It means he looked into the future because he understood that what he was about to do would not just affect the person in front of him, but of future generations as well. Verse number 13. And on the second day, he goes on the second day, and behold, two Jews were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, why are you going to strike your friend? Here we have a lot to talk about. So who are these two people? Our sages tell us that whenever we come across the word nitzim, it's an unusual word. Nitzim means quarreling. Whenever we come across two people quarreling in the story of the Exodus, it's referring to Dasan and Aviram. These are troublemakers that continue to be troublemakers later, particularly in the story of Korach, the rebellion against Moshe. So this is Dasan and Aviram. Nitzim were fighting. Lama Sake. Moshe Rabbeinu says to one of them, why are you about to hit your friend? And the Talmud asks a pretty simple question over here. Why does he refer to him as a Rasha if he has not yet hit his fellow? What's the reason? You don't call if someone has not yet done anything. So why does the Torah refer to him as a Rasha? Rasha means a wicked person. He hadn't struck his friend. How is he determined to be wicked already? Says the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, 58b. Hamagbia yado al chavero. One who raises his hand to strike his friend. Afal pi shelo hikahu. Even if he has not yet struck him, nikra rasha. He is called a wicked person. Not just the actual hitting, but the lifting of the hand to hit someone already causes a person to be wicked. Shenemar, as the verse states over here, Vayomer LaRasha. He told the wicked person, Lama Sakariecha, why do you intend to hit your friend? Lama Hikisalo Nemar, says the Talmud. It doesn't say, Moshe says, why did you hit your friend, your fellow? But rather, why do you intend to hit it? From here, the Talmud derives again, Afal Pi Shelo Hikahu. If someone raises his hand to hit someone and then somehow is stopped. Now, if a person raises their hand and then pulls it back from hitting, then you could say within that moment, there's both the wicked act as well as the act of tshuva. But in a situation where a person lifts their hand and for some reason someone else stops them. Someone else comes in, like in this situation where Moshe comes in and stops them in this situation. So then this person is called a Rasha simply by lifting their hand to hit. Now, why is that? Why is that? We have a why Russia is a pretty harsh term to use. Why would it be that someone simply raises their hand to strike someone is already referred to as a Russia? And if you're going to try to answer, perhaps the answer is that the reason is because even the wicked intent is wicked. So just the intent to hurt someone is already something that makes someone wicked. Well, if that's the explanation, then why do you need to lift the hand? Then even it should say, the Talmud should say, even one who considers or plans to hit someone is already a Russia. Seems to be a strange point to determine that someone is wicked. That when they lift their hand to hit someone, there's wickedness there. Again, if it's about the action, well, then you got to wait for the hit to be placed. If it's about the intent, so then already when they plan on it in their mind, regardless whether they lifted their hand. And yet over here, it seems to be about lifting one's hand to hit someone. Why would that make someone wicked? So the Rabbi gives a beautiful explanation over here. It says like this. It says, the truth is that the purpose of creation is that we were created to serve our Creator. In the words of the sages, Ani nivresi l'shamish eskoni, I was created to serve my I was created to serve my Creator. Or a slightly different terminology, Ani lo nivresi elo l'shamish eskoni. The only reason I was created was for no reason other than to serve my Creator. Hasidic masters go on to talk about the difference between those two expressions. The bottom line, though, is that we were created to serve our Creator. But when we say that, what we mean really is not just some sort of general purpose of creation, but rather every detail within creation, every part of me was created to serve my Creator. So not just me, but when I say me, I mean myself, my eyes, my ears, my nose, my mouth, my feet, my hands, every part of me. When I look at it, when you buy a vehicle. So one of the things you want to do is figure out, what is this button for? What is that all about? What is every detail? Usually I get through about, 20% of the buttons to know what they're for. So that's the idea. You buy something, everything is here for a reason. Everything serves some sort of function, and it's supposed to be helpful to me. So the same is true when it comes to creation. God created not just me in general to serve God, but every part of me is part of that purpose. And if that's the case, let's talk about the hand for a moment. So God created a hand. In Hebrew, the word for hand is yad. So why was the yad created? In what way is the hand meant to serve our Creator? And the most obvious purpose that the hand has is the words yad hamechalekes tzedakah, the hand which gives charity. The purpose of the hand is to give. The purpose of the hand is to embrace and to hug. But there's no action, but the general understanding is that the hand is there to extend to others, perhaps more than any other part of the body, really, if you think about it, right? We have obviously, when we think of giving, we associate it with the heart, but the action of giving is most associated with the hand. That's the idea. Yad hamechal is the hand which gives. Even the concept of a handshake. I once remember hearing about a handshake, is that the Kabbalistic idea behind a handshake is that the hand is made up of 5 fingers. And when you shake someone else's hand, and I know during COVID we avoid handshaking, but theoretically, when you shake someone's hand, you have the 2 elements of 5. 5 plus 5 equals 10. Now we're throwing in some sod. Remember, PARDES. So here's the secrets of a little bit of secrets. So the idea of a handshake is that you have 2 hands which embrace one another. 5 plus 5 equals 10, and 10 represents completion in Judaism on many levels. There's the 10 elements of the soul. 10 represents completion. So when 2 people extend their hands toward one another and shake their hands, there's actually a mystical completion taking place with this handshake. But regardless to how mystical you want to get or how simple you want to get, the hand is designated as the part of the body which gives. And that's why God created it. Based on this, when a person lifts their hand with the intent to harm, they've already done an act of evil in the sense of using a tool that God gave for one reason, and not just using it for not using it for its divine purpose, but actually using it for the polar opposite of what it was created for. The hand was created to give. So now, on one level, you could say, well, if I use my hand only to take care of myself, okay, so it's a rejection of the divine purpose of my hand. When I lift my hand to strike someone, so then suddenly the hand is being used for the exact opposite of what it was created for. And therein already lies a certain level of Russia. And that answers our question. We said, why is it a person in Russia? Again, if we follow action, it should go by when the hit was struck. When it goes by intent, it should go by when the intent rose in my mind. And yet over here, the Talmud, based on this verse, says when one lifts their hand is a Russia. Yes, because as soon as one lifts the hand to strike, already the hand has now been designated to do something which opposes the divine will. And that's why at that point, a person is already a Russia. Now, as we said earlier, at that point, a person can do the immediate and profound act of tshuva, of repentance, and take the hand back, or better yet, as even when lifting one's hand to strike, if they can change course mid-action and somehow turn it into an embrace instead of hitting, doing a handshake instead of a negative, so then a person can do tshuva immediately for this act, and again redesignate the hand to fulfill its purpose that it was created for. I'll share one more idea connected to these verses, which I don't remember where I heard it, but I do remember that it struck me profoundly. I remember it. I think every year when we read this idea comes to mind, and that is that we find something interesting over here in these verses. So you see verse number 11 and verse number 12. Verse number 11, Moshe, verse number 11, that is, and then verse number 12 and 13. So Moshe goes out one day, he encounters a problem, and he resolves it. He goes out the next day, he encounters a problem again. So Moshe Rabbeinu walks outside and notices 2 days in a row, and he has to deal with conflict. On a simple level, God's teaching him that if you're going to be a leader, get ready for conflict. That's what you're going to have to resolve, conflict resolution. But on a deeper level, there's a message over here, and that is that Moshe is going to be a Jewish leader. First day he goes out and he sees an enemy of the Jewish people. In this case, it was an Egyptian striking one of the Jewish slaves. And Moshe Rabbeinu, in verse number 12, is able to pretty easily resolve this issue. He's able to resolve the hatred and the attack that the Jew faces from an enemy. Verse number 13, the next day he walks out, and it's almost as if God said, okay, you passed that test. The next day, Moshe Rabbeinu walks outside, and he sees two Jews fighting with each other. And over here, Moshe can't really fix it. He can't. Look, what happens? It's not as if Moshe is able to resolve it. He tries to, and he tells the person, stop. But what's the next? What happens next is that the person says, we know what you did yesterday, and it's reported to Paro, and Paro wants to kill Moshe, verse 15, and Moshe has to run away. So Moshe can't resolve the conflict that takes place within the Jewish people. And this idea is so much broader than just these two small episodes. It tells us the reality of Jewish history, and that is that more often than not, the Jewish people have been able to withstand the attacks that came from the outside. It caused great pain, it caused devastation and loss and death, but much like that first episode in which an external force of hate attacked a Jew, the Jewish people were able to say, Moshe was able to resolve that. But when it's fighting from within, when it's two Jews fighting with each other, Moshe Rabbeinu can't resolve it. Even the greatest leader, even the perfect man of God is unable to fix that. We have to fix it ourselves. We have to learn how to fix it within ourselves. I once heard this some connection to the United States of America. I once heard a line, I'm not saying it verbatim, but a line that was said by Abraham Lincoln. And he said the United States of America will never be destroyed by a force that comes to attack us from the outside. We are strong enough to withstand any enemy that attacks us from the outside. He says, the only thing which will tear us apart, the only thing which will bring us down is if we don't get along on the inside. If we can't get along with each other, that could bring down our country, but no external force. And Lahabdo, this is the idea that's being expressed over here, is that the enemy on the outside who hurts the Jew, Moshe says he has the ability to resolve that. But the enmity and the fighting that takes place from within, even Moshe can't resolve it. In fact, it causes him to have to run away. This is a lesson that continues throughout Jewish history. That is, just to flip it to the positive, the positive conclusion to this is that if we do learn to get along and resolve our issues, so then no external force will be able to destroy the great Jewish nation. All right, with that we conclude today's Torah study. Hopefully you'll join me next week, the Torah portion of Va'era, as we continue our Pardes discussion.